In this edition of Daily Trail Markers, 6 more states will hold primaries next week. Ballots will be cast in Idaho, Michigan, Mississippi, Missouri, North Dakota, and Washington state. Voters head to the polls there Tuesday. They will be selecting from a drastically smaller Democratic field. It's become a head-to-head contest between former Vice President Joe Biden and Senator Bernie Sanders. They are both crisscrossing the country this weekend to meet with voters ahead of Election Day. But as the race heats up, a CBS News analysis found the amount of money spent on ads has dramatically dropped. For more on this, let's bring in Sarah Ewall-Wice. She's a CBS News political unit associate producer. Sarah, welcome. So great to have you here. So we are looking at a dramatically different landscape. Boy, is it winnowed down. What does that mean in terms of spending now and super PAC money? My main question, though, is about Bloomberg's money, right? Is it now that it's not going to him, has it already started winnowing its way over to the other candidates?
So, I mean, the field has definitely leveled a lot with the ad spending specifically. Obviously, when we spoke last time, Mike Bloomberg was spending over $250 million in those Super Tuesday states that voted on Tuesday. Now he's out of the race, and so are the $580 million he spent on ads so far. With that said, he's not done spending. He said when he dropped out that he reported that he would still be fighting to defeat Donald Trump. As our Ed O'Keefe reported, that means keeping staff in some states as well as airing ads against Donald Trump. But then it comes down to Bernie Sanders versus Joe Biden. And right now we're looking at 6 contests on Tuesday, March 10th, and they're now spending on par when it comes to the ads. About $2 million each, which is not the case in any race leading up or any contest leading up to now. On Super Tuesday, Bernie Sanders had spent $18 million to Joe Biden's $2 million. So the field has definitely leveled off in terms of the spending.
And how exactly does Biden's super PAC fit into this?
So Unite the Country super PAC has been actively engaged in airing ads since Iowa. It actually outspent the Biden campaign in Iowa and New Hampshire. It has been spending in the other early states. It did play some ads in Super Tuesday states, but now they're actively airing ads in, it was in Michigan and Missouri heading into Tuesday, but only about $500,000 so far on ads. So Biden is outspending them. It'll be interesting to see. Their ads have been more about unity and coming together behind Joe Biden.
And you've been speaking to donors on the ground. What are their thoughts about how this race is consolidating?
So they have been calling me, texting me. We've been talking since Joe Biden won South Carolina last Saturday, and they're saying how everyone, the big donors, are coming together behind Joe Biden. Before, some of them were sitting out and waiting, let's see how this field narrows. Some of them were obviously supporting Amy Klobuchar and Pete Buttigieg. I've been texting and talking to a bunch of them, and they said as soon as Pete Buttigieg dropped out of the race, as soon as Amy Klobuchar dropped out of the race, some of their biggest supporters have reached out actively wanting to fundraise for Biden.
None of those donors went over to Sanders?
You know, it's funny, but Bernie Sanders has been all about the grassroots, and he has slammed the big donors. He has slammed the big fundraisers. So I have not heard anyone going and reaching across the aisle. I will say I am very interested to see where the Elizabeth Warren donors end up. Obviously, behind Bernie Sanders, she had the largest amount of grassroots support after she left the race on Thursday. The idea is a lot of those supporters will be in the progressive lane, will go towards Bernie Sanders, but she hasn't endorsed either candidate yet. And I have seen some crossover Elizabeth Warren supporters who are now saying they will be donating to Joe Biden or actively campaigning for Joe Biden. So it's something to keep an eye on. We'll find out some of those numbers, fundraising numbers, towards the end of the month for February and then further on down the line.
Of course, we know the DNC has now released the qualifications for the next debate. So can we expect just the last 2 men standing? There is still technically a woman in the race, but she probably won't make the cut?
Based on these qualifications that were put out today by the DNC, she will not be making the cut from what we can tell. Originally, leading up until today, there was the idea that if you had at least 1 delegate, you could get onto the debate stage. That was the case for Nevada and for South Carolina, the 2 most recent debates. However, today they announced that the qualifications would be at least 20% of all allocated delegates so far. And Tulsi Gabbard, while she does have 2 delegates by CBS's news count, will not have 20% of the delegates. We've seen allocated so far by CBS News count, Joe Biden has 625, Bernie Sanders has 548. So it looks like this will be a head-to-head matchup between the two of them. Probably some fighting words on March 15th, which is 2 days before the Arizona primary.
And we will all be watching. Sarah Ewall-Wice, thank you so much for joining us. Always a pleasure having you on the show.
Of course.